Welcome to the Gorilla 9 Scheduling and Budgeting New Features video. I'm going to go over some of the brand new features that we introduced in Gorilla Studio 9. There are over 25 new features and enhancements in Gorilla Studio 9. And in this webinar, we are going to go over the top 16 features. The very first one is called Checklist. And on the top right, you can see it says Scheduling and Budgeting, which means that this is a feature that is in both scheduling and in budgeting. So what this feature allows you to do is to create a checklist for schedules and budgets, including assigned to and due date. So let's go ahead and take a look at that feature. So here is Gorilla Studio 9. And as you can see, the schedules are on the left side of the screen and the budgets are on the right side of the screen. If you will notice, there is a brand new button here next to each schedule and also next to each budget. And this is a checklist button. If I were to select this button, you can see that a checklist of items will appear below the schedule. The same thing will happen under the budget. Now, this one doesn't have any checklist items, but you can add them if you want by clicking this plus button right here. And you will see that a list of checklist items will appear, and you can simply select any item to add it to the list. Now, let's go back over to the schedule. When you create a line item, you have the name, you can enter an assigned to, and you can enter a due date. If you click on the Edit button, here's the name. If you want to change the color, you can highlight the name and then select another color. You can select an Assigned To. And there are two buttons here. You can either type in the name, or if you have already created some crew and some actors, you can select this button here, and this will show you a list of all the crew members which you can select from. If there is a phone or an email attached to that name, it will appear here. Or, of course, you can just type in the phone or the email. If you wanted to enter a cast member instead, you can go ahead and do that. Checklist items are usually not assigned to cast members, but you can attach any cast to any checklist item. And here is where you can enter a note if you wanted to. You can, of course, delete the item or delete all the items right here. You also have a little checkbox next to each item, which indicates that the task is completed or not. You can also sort the list by different ways. By item name, that is how they are sorted now. You can sort them by the assigned to. These here are blank, so they will be sorted first. Or you can sort them by the due date. This button down here is a color button. And this is actually quite useful. And I'm going to show you how you can use colors in your checklist. I already showed you how to change the color of an individual checklist item. But if you wanted to change all the colors to another random set, you can click that button and you can see that all the colors changed. But this one here is a little bit light, so you can go ahead and change that to a darker one if you want. Or you can select the checked color button. And what this will allow you to do is, as you can see right now, it's set to random. But if you wanted to distinguish the checked versus the unchecked, you can say that, for example, the checked should be blue and the unchecked, let's say, should be brown. And if you click OK, you can very quickly see that all the blue items are checked and all the brown items are not checked, making it very easy to see which item is completed or not. You can also print the checklist. If you click here, a nice report will appear with all the items and the notes, and you can save that to a PDF or print it. Another option is the import and export buttons. So if you wanted to export the checklist, you can do that. Or if you wanted to import a checklist, you can also do that. And the import will import an Excel file or a tab-separated text file based on this format, which you can see right here. So you could create a checklist in Excel if you wanted to with these columns, and then you can import that. Now you can also email the checklist. This is what the body of the email will look like. The subject you can change. And here you can enter who you want to send the checklist to. So if I have email addresses entered, here's one, and here is another one. And if you click send, it will open either your Mac Mail or your Windows Outlook. And there you go. And you can see the checklist is in the body of the email. There is the subject, which of course you can change. And here is who it is sending to. Now, since you are in your local email program, you can add whomever you want. And you can modify anything you want in the body of the email. And again, you could do the same exact thing on the budget side. Now, on the schedule side only, if you click on the plus button, you will see that certain items at the top of the list are green and marked with an asterisk. If you select any of these items will automatically check to complete when that task is completed in the schedule. Now, this schedule happens to be fairly complete, so if I were to select any one of these items, most likely they would automatically be checked. So, for example, I know that we have breakdown sheets created for this particular schedule. So if I click that, notice that breakdown sheets created comes in. And by default, it is green. Now, you can, of course, change that color if you want. And it is automatically checked. Why? Because breakdown sheets are already created for this schedule. If you wanted to create an item that is not in the list, you can do that by clicking this plus button here, and then by entering the item here, and then selecting it to add to the list. And it automatically assigns it a new color. But again, you can change that color if you wanted to. So that is the first new feature in Gorilla 9, enabling you to create a checklist for your schedule or your budget. Now, the next feature works in conjunction with the checklist feature, and that is the Taskbar. This is a scheduling-only feature, as you can see up here. And what this does is it shows the checklist items displayed in a taskbar on the breakdown sheets screen. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Let's go into this schedule, and you can see that we have about 16 checklist items here. And on the breakdown sheet screen down here, this is a brand new taskbar. And you can see that it mimics the production checklist that we just created. If you select an item here, you can set that task to be completed or not completed. You can enter an assigned to or modify it, or enter or modify a note. Now, of course, this is the same information that is in the checklist. So if I were to click this one here, Costume Designer, I can see who it is assigned to, enter a note, and as you can see, this item is checked, so it is blue. If I were to uncheck it, it would turn brown, because brown is unchecked and blue is checked. You can hide the taskbar by clicking on this button here, and it goes away. If you want to bring it back, you can go up to the View pull-down menu, select Show Hide Taskbar, and then Show Checklist. And there it is. Very cool feature. Now, this taskbar is only shown on the breakdown sheets screen, but this is your main scheduling screen, and you can quickly look down and see what is completed and what needs to be completed. Let's move on to the next feature, and that is multiple languages. You're going to see this throughout Gorilla, both in scheduling and budgeting. Gorilla can now be switched to 14 different languages: Spanish, French, German, Portuguese, Korean, Chinese, Arabic, Hebrew, Russian, Hindi, Japanese, Swedish, and Turkish. So let me show you how to do that. Now, you can do it here on the Breakdown Sheets screen under the Extras menu, where it says Set Language for Gorilla, but I'm going to go to the Manager screen where we start. And if you click on the extras up here and select Set Language for Gorilla, you can select one of the 14 languages. So let's see what it looks like, for example, in Japanese. Why not? You will get this message every single time you switch to a different language, basically stating that we have done our best to translate Gorilla into that language. And if you find any discrepancies in the translation, please contact us and we will change it. It's pretty much the same disclaimer that Google Translate has on their translation page. And now you can see that all the labels are in that language, in this case, Japanese. Now the data will still be in the language that it was entered in. I entered all this in English, so it's going to still be in English. But if you change your keyboard to the Japanese keyboard or whatever language you are in, then you can type in that language, of course, in Gorilla. You can see here all the categories are in Japanese. So again, if I click on props, all these elements that came in from the screenplay were in English, so that's not going to change. But the pull-down menus, for example, are in the selected language. So let's try another language here. Okay, now sometimes if you do change a language, you might lose yourself here in the pull-down menus. I'm going to select German. And now all the labels are in German. The tabs here are in German. The categories are in German. If I were to select the Shoot Days button, the days on the calendar would, of course, be in German. Now, I would say that about 80 or 85% of the program translates into the selected language. Certain labels and dialogues will still be in English, but for the most part, most of the program will be in that language. Okay, I will now switch back into English before going on to the next feature. The next feature is automated estimated time to breakdown sheets. Gorilla can now automatically populate estimated time for each breakdown sheet based on script page count. So let me show you what that does. Now we do have a scene timing tab. This was introduced in Gorilla 8. If you were to click this tab, now you would not have seen this message in Gorilla 8, this gives you the scene timing options, and we added a new option. First option is you can enter the estimated hour and estimated minutes in the fields directly on the breakdown sheet, which is right here. Now this, of course, is the easiest way to do that, and this will appear on the stripboard for this particular scene. The second option is you can create tasks introduced in version 8, where you can create a task. Let me move this out of the way here for a moment. And each task can be assigned a time. You can select Do Not Add Time for any task if that time overlaps with another time. So if you were to click Do Not Add Time here, this would subtract 1 hour from the time. The total time is now 2 hours and 30 minutes. And this up here is the field that actually appears on the stripboard. You can override this at any time by clicking in here and typing in a new value, which overrides the scene timing tasks here. To update it again with the calculated time, you can click on that button and it will sync to that time. The third scene timing feature, which is brand new in Gorilla 9, is the auto-populated estimated time based on page count. So, for example, this scene has a time. This next scene has a time. And then this next scene also has a time. But this one, notice, does not. And scene 5 also no time. Now, I could enter a time if I wanted to. Scene 6, no time. I don't think there are any times for any of the rest of the scenes. If you click on Breakdown Sheet, you can see that this scene really should be timed because there's a scene here. And this takes time to shoot. So what you can do with the third option is auto-populate the estimated time field on the breakdown sheet based on the page count of the scene. Notice that this page count here is 1 4/8 of a page. Now, this came in from the screenplay. So if I click on the auto-populate time button, you will see a brand new screen which shows you a legend. If page count is 1/8 of a page, then the estimated time will be 15 minutes. Now, you can change that if you wanted to, but these are the default settings. If the page count is 2/8 of a page, then the estimated time will be 30 minutes to shoot the scene. And let's go down here. If page count is 1 4/8 of a page, then the estimated time to shoot the scene is 3 hours. Remember, this is an estimate. There is an option here that says overwrite existing estimated time entries. Now, I already have 3 scenes with estimated times that I entered using the other scene timing feature. So I really don't want those overwritten. So I'm not going to click this button right here. If I did, then it would overwrite everything. Okay, I will now click on the Auto Populate button. Now, if I were to go to scene 3, now this one already had a time, but scene 4 did not. And now there's an estimated time there of 2 hours because the legend said that if page count is 1 or 1 page, then the estimated time should be 2 hours. So you can see that this could really be a big time saver here. Here is 2/8 of a page, 30 minutes to shoot the scene. And 5/8 of a page, 1 hour and 15 minutes. This is going to help you tremendously when you schedule your strips. So let's actually go to the board real quick, because now each day break will have an estimated time based on the page count and the new auto-populate scene timing feature. All these times here were auto-entered. Let's go to the next feature. We're going to now go into budgeting. This feature is called multiple actions for budget detail line items. You can now select multiple detail line items in the budget and apply an action to those items, including adding globals, groups, and more. To show you this feature, we need to pop on over to budgeting. Here in the manager is a sample budget. This budget is already linked to this schedule. So let's go ahead and click on the budget. So we are now on the top sheet of this budget, and this feature is on the detail level. As you can see here, multiple actions for budget detail line items. So let's go into talent and then go into actors. Now, I don't have any actors here, so let's go ahead and add some. If you go down here and click the actors button, you can then import these actors. I will click on select all. Now, you might notice that in previous versions of Gorilla, there was no checkbox next to a line item. Now, on the detail level, there is a little checkbox next to each detail line item. This checkbox allows you to select it. Now, as I select the first one, notice that a pull-down menu appears here that says Select Action, which is basically asking you, what do you want to do with this particular item? Let's go ahead and select 3 of them. And now I'm going to go ahead and select an action. Now, these 3 actors already have rates attached to them because they were imported from the schedule. But let's say, for example, that they were empty and you wanted to give these 3 actors the same rate. If you select the Select Action pull-down, you can see that there are a lot of choices to choose from. I'm going to select the Change Rate To option. Now I'm going to simply enter 100 for $100 and click OK. And what that's going to do is change the rate to each one of these actors to 100. Now, if I have 5 items, 10 items, 20 items checked, it would do the same to all the items in just one click. Because the amount is different for these items, you can see here that this is 2, 2, and 5. That is why the subtotal differs. So let's say we wanted to modify this amount to all be 5. What I can, now these are already checked, so you want to select the Select Action pull down, change amount to, enter the value 5, and click OK. And you can see that all of them change to 5 days at $100 a day which equals $500. So this is a really great feature. Let's do something else. Let me go ahead and clear all checked. Okay, let's add a fringe. For example, a SAG fringe to all these actors. I can select them either one at a time, or what I can do is select one of them and then select all checked, and then deselect these two because I don't want a fringe attached to those two line items. Let's go up here again and select Add Remove Fringe. Now I happen to have a SAG fringe and a Medicare fringe. The SAG fringe is at 15%. Notice there are these two new buttons here, which are Add or Remove. If I click on Add, what this is going to do, it's going to go down the list of all the actors. Now these here are question marks because there's no rate, and it cannot calculate a fringe if there's no rate. If there was a rate here, it would calculate the fringe. And you can see that a 15% SAG fringe was added. And down here is the total fringes. Okay, so let me go ahead and clear this. And let's see what else we can do. We can also add and remove groups. Now, if you don't know anything about the groups feature, you really should check that out. This is a really great feature that allows you to create groups. Now, I have 3 groups here: Georgia, Deferred, and Visual Effects Crew. Georgia is a locale. So let's say, for example, that I wanted to add certain actors to the Georgia group. So I will select this one, and this one, and go ahead and select Action, Add Remove Group. And again, you can also do the remove also, and you can see that these are the 3 groups. I can select the Add button, and you can see that all these 3 actors are now attached to this group. And if you are not familiar with groups, please watch that lesson. You can then print or suppress items in the budget that are attached to groups. Okay, let's see what else we can do. We can change the currency for everything checked. If I wanted to change the currency for certain items, now I don't have to do all of them. I can select any items, as many as I want, and change the currency to Euro or Japanese Yen or whatever currency I have here. Next, you could also do globals. And there are 3 types of globals that you can add or remove. Now, the global fields are right here. There is an amount field, an X field, and a rate field. Now, right now, there are no globals attached to these, but if I wanted to attach a global, I will select a few other items. I will select these 3, and then select Add Remove a Global Amount. There are no globals, so I will create one real quick, and I will call this SD, and enter shoot days in the description, and give it a value of 10. Okay, I can now click on Add Amount, and you will see that immediately all 3 of these line items will have the little green flag indicating that the value entered is a global, in this case 10. And lastly, what you can do is you can delete checked. I will select it. I won't do it, but it says here you are about to delete checked items. Are you sure you want to do this? If you would click delete, it would delete all these 3 line items with any fringes attached to them or whatever else you have attached to them. Okay, let's move on to the next feature. The next one is in scheduling, and that is our split screen breakdown stripboard feature. This is a new stripboard view that allows you to see your breakdown sheets and add and modify elements on sheets with your stripboard in the same window. So let's go ahead and check that out. We're going to go back into the scheduling module. Now, I do have a stripboard, and if I were to click on stripboard, by default, it will go to the normal stripboard screen. And of course, you can go ahead and move things around, drag things up and down. And if you wanted to click on a cast member here, you can see details for that cast member. And of course, you can click on scenes and immediately see which scenes that character is in. Now, you might notice there are a few new buttons here. This is one of them. And if I hover over it, it says Split Screen Show Breakdown Sheets. These two are also new, and I'm going to go over those a little bit later. That is also a new feature. So if I were to click on this button right here, you will see a message that says double-click a strip to navigate to that breakdown sheet. And you can turn that message off if you want. Now this shows you a new view with your stripboard on the right and your breakdown sheets on the left. And this is really nice if you have a really big, large monitor. See, I can move this over here so I can see the full stripboard toolbar. And what you can do on this screen is you can double-click on a strip, of course, and you will go to that breakdown sheet on the left. And you can also move a strip up or down to another position on the stripboard. Notice that if you do, it says here, save board to refresh, because we moved scene 4. Let's actually move it to a different day. And to refresh that, you can click on the Save Board button. But you can move strips on the right, and on the left, you can see all the elements in their respective categories. And if you wanted to, you could actually add elements to a particular category. Before this feature, you would have to close the board and then do that on the breakdown sheet screen and then go back to the board. So normally, I would go here, and if I wanted to add another cast member, I would click the Cast Members button here and add a character. But now, what I can do, I can move this up here, I can click on the Cast Members box in the split screen. I could add another character to the scene. You can see it here and here. Same thing, for example, for wardrobe. If I wanted to add this element and this element, you can see that it appears here. So this is just another way that you can very quickly see elements side by side next to your stripboard and still move scenes up and down on the board. Again, understand that you are in the stripboard view primarily, which means you have some access to breakdown sheets. Now, if you wanted to change the scene, like for example to scene 4A, you could do that. You could change this from interior to exterior. You could change the set or the day-night field. You can do that. But if you wanted to access all the breakdown features like tagging the screenplay or merging breakdown sheets or removing or finding breakdown sheets, that you would have to do in this particular window. So you have the option now to use both of them. Okay, great. Let's move on to the next feature. The next feature that I want to show you is another stripboard feature, and that is add time to banners. You can now add an estimated time, both hour and minutes. Now we saw that on scene timing, to a banner on the stripboard, which will calculate for that day. So we are already on the stripboard, and we can do that in this view, or you could do this in the normal view. Let me go back to the normal stripboard view. You can see that there is a banner right here, indicated by the brown color, and it's a little bit of a smaller strip. And another one right here. And now there is a time attached to each one of these banners. And that will calculate now with the estimated time for the scenes for the entire day. So if I were to double click on this banner, these two fields here are new. Let's go ahead and change this to 1 hour and 45 minutes. And now the estimated time for the day has changed to 5 hours and 55 minutes. If I were to move a banner to another day, notice that would change also. It calculates based on where the banner is placed. Let's go ahead and add a new banner. In order to do that, you would select a strip so that it is highlighted, and then select the Insert Banner button. Again, this is the new part right here. And I will type in New Banner. Now, again, what a banner is, it's really just a note on the stripboard. You can say things like lunch break or company move or things like that. Let's go ahead and enter 45 minutes for this particular banner. So 45 minutes for this scene, 45 minutes for the banner, and 30 minutes for this scene, which will calculate to 2 hours. And if you were to go ahead and print the board, you will see that the banner time will appear in the banner location, and it will calculate in the total for estimated time. Similarly, if you were to export the board, and you might have seen the export button there, if you want to export the board to Excel, I'll just call it board. And you can see here in the Excel file that the estimated time is right over here. And here is the banner, and here are all the times. Okay, let's move on to the next feature. This one is Import PDF Screenplay. And this allows you to import a screenplay in the PDF format. And I'm going to show you how to do that with a sample PDF script that I have on the desktop. In order to import a screenplay, you want to go back to the manager, and I will close this checklist and close this checklist. I have two schedules here, but I'm going to add a new screenplay, which is a PDF, which I have on the desktop. Let's first open it up with Preview. And as you can see, it's formatted quite nicely with scene numbers and scene headings and slug lines. Okay, we have many videos on how to properly format a screenplay, so please take a look at that if you need some help to format the screenplay. So let's go ahead and click the plus sign down here, and then the Import Screenplay button, and you will see here that a PDF script is a new option here. So when I click on this button, you will see that there is the FDX file format option, the SEX file format option, and now the PDF file option. Each one has a little info button here. This is going to give you some information about the PDF parser and how it imports the screenplay. And there are certain rules that you need to adhere to when importing a screenplay from a PDF. Most importantly, only use uppercase when it comes to characters right before dialogue. Okay, let's go ahead and click on the PDF button, and it's going to give you a message here that it is always best to try to import the screenplay in the FDX or the SEX file format if you can. But if you cannot, you can bring in the screenplay with the PDF. And that is another reason that we added the page count feature. Remember the scene timing, which we did earlier? Page count is not brought in from a PDF script, but you can estimate it with Gorilla. Okay, let's go ahead and click on the Continue button, and you will see a new window here where you can drag the PDF file into this area, and you will see the first page of the script. You also want to make sure that you don't import the title page. Sometimes screenplays have title pages. Now, I have this checked, which is allow Gorilla to calculate page count. So next, let's click on the Import PDF button. After the import, you will probably see some remarks here. So let's go ahead and look at some of the remarks. You can see that it came in pretty nicely. These numbers indicate which screenplay paragraph element was used for this line. For example, husband is a 4, and what 4 is, if you just click on it, it's a character. Why? Because this word is capitalized. And the stern in parentheticals is a 5. And what is a 5? It is a parenthetical. Why? Because this word had parentheses around it. Same thing with the INT house and exterior house morning. Gorilla knew that these were scene headings. Paragraph element 2, because it began with INT period or EXT period. So you can see that there are certain rules that really help Gorilla import the PDF properly. Let's scroll down here and see what remarks we have. Okay, here's one or two remarks that says this line tagged as action but could be dialogue. Now, it happens to be action, so I'm going to click that. You don't have to do that. It is already tagged correctly. If it is tagged correctly, you really don't have to do anything. It's just a remark. Let's go down here a little bit more. And again, this is tagged as action, but could be dialogue. Again, it is an action line, so we're fine. So I'll actually tell you something. I'm not going to do anything here. I'm going to leave this be. I don't have to click action. It is already action. And again, if I wanted to change something, for example, if this was dialogue here or character, I could click on it and then change it. So now let's click on the cleanup button. Now, it's going to say there are still remarks that have not been fixed or ignored. Do you want to continue? That's totally fine. I can click yes because I know that these are fine. But it's really just 2 clicks here. Okay, so once the remarks are 0 and I click cleanup, Gorilla combines the duplicate lines and formats the screenplay better. And then click on Import into Gorilla. You will next see this window that says Select Characters, which basically tells you to check all the elements that are not characters. Now, this happens to be a very cleanly formatted script. I've only capitalized the characters, but if you have other lines that were all caps, which happens a lot, you will see all those records here, and you want to make sure that you select not a character to all the entries that are not characters. Otherwise, they will come in as characters. But these happen to all be characters, so I'm going to click on Continue. I'm going to name it, and the schedule is created. Again, it's just a short script with only 6 scenes. And here, Gorilla asks you if you want to auto-calculate the page count based on the screenplay. I'm going to say OK. And now we have a page count for each scene. And here we go. The screenplay comes in really quite nicely. The cast members come in per scene. Again, if you do not remove the non-characters in that list, you would probably see a lot of entries here that should not be here. And you can clean it up and remove those records in Elements. Okay, let's go to scene 2. Looks pretty good. And you can now start tagging, entering props, or selecting a word in the screenplay. Green vegetables, and tag that as a prop. And there we go. Okay, let's move on to the next feature, which is a budgeting feature. And this is the Fringe by Breakdown section feature. This allows you to show fringes by section, both on the top sheet and with a new report. In order to show this, we need to go into a budget. I'll select the one we've been working on, which I know we do have some fringes in this budget. And here they are, if you look at them at the bottom. You can now click this field right here, and you will see a new window that is labeled Sections and Fringes. And this will now show you the fringes by section. So you can see that in pre-production, the total fringes are $495. If there are any cutoffs, that will be shown here. And here are the total fringes for the entire section. And this here is the subtotal for the section, which of course mimics this on the top sheet. In production, you can see that the cutoff fringes there are for $6,000. Same amount here. That's probably a credit. And there are no fringes for post and no fringes for other. Now, if you want to print, you can print this as a report, showing you all the same information, but in a nice printed format. So you can now see by section what the fringes are. The next feature is import breakdown sheets from another schedule, which is a scheduling feature. You can now import breakdown sheets with all scheduled elements from another schedule. This is a big time saver, especially if you have different schedules with episodes. So let's go to the manager and select our schedule. But notice here that we have 2 other schedules loaded. So this is actually great. We're going to import from one of these. If you go to the File pull-down menu, there's a brand new option here called Import Breakdown Sheets from another schedule. Now, of course, you do have to have that schedule loaded in Gorilla. In this instance, I have 3 schedules loaded. The one in red is the current schedule, so obviously you don't want to import into itself. But if I click on another schedule in the list, this is going to show you a window with all the breakdown sheets for that schedule, even though we are in a completely different schedule. We're basically now looking at all the breakdown sheets for Interviewing Norman. Now remember this one, PDF script, that we just imported. If I click on that, here are the 6 scenes from that schedule, from the PDF script. So let's actually use that, even though there are not that many elements attached, but I do know that in scene 1 there was a husband and a wife as characters. So let's say we want to import that. Now we can import as many scenes as we want, but let's just select and import that one scene into this particular schedule. Now this is scene 1, and we already have a scene 1, so we might want to change the scene number after it imports. Here it says Breakdown Sheets to import 1. Click on Import, and it says you're about to import 1 breakdown sheet from the scheduled PDF script. Click Continue. Here is where you want to create a new episode for the scene if you want to create a new episode. Now, you can do that if you want, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to select Keep. We've basically imported a brand new scene from another schedule. Now, if you wanted to, you could change that to scene 1A, and you can resort this here so that scene 1 is above it. So these are 2 new cast members that have been added. If I click on the cast members, you can see that husband and wife are here. And if you wanted to give them IDs, you can certainly do that. You can go to Elements. Let's actually do that. Let's go to Elements, filter this by cast members. Now I can do this manually or automatically. I believe the last one was 10, so let's make this 11. And let's make the next one 12. And let's sort it by ID, and there we go. And there is husband and wife in the cast member list, which now can be added to any scene. So let's actually go a little bit deeper here because we imported this scene from another schedule, yet it's not scheduled automatically on our Stripboard. Now I know this because it says that right here, that it's not scheduled on the board. I also know this because if I were to go down to the Sort button and select Show Phase, you can see that here is Principal Photography, here is Principal Photography, but this scene is not attached to a phase. So let's first do that. Click on Phase, add it to Principal Photography, click Continue. Now, let's go over to the Stripboard. And if we scroll all the way to the bottom, here is our brand new scene. It's all the way below the last day and above the boneyard. But of course we can drag it up. And let's say we want to shoot it right after scene 1. So we'll put it there. We'll go ahead and save the board. Now notice that every time I save the board, it makes a backup of the board to an Excel file. And that is the next feature I'm going to show you. Restore Stripboard. This is the ability to restore a saved Excel file to the Stripboard. So every time you save the board, it creates an Excel backup. If I hide Gorilla and go to the desktop, into Documents, into Gorilla 9, now when we release a later version, of course, would be that version, then Other Schedule Additions, and Backup Stripboards. Now I have quite a few here because I've been saving the board throughout this session. It titles it the name of the board and gives it a random number. But if you click the file, you can see the date and time saved. Now I could rename it if I want, and just to make it clear, I'm going to rename it Last Save. Okay? If I move this board around, if I delete the board, or what have you, if I wanted to restore this board as it was saved, now this is a quick preview of this Excel file, you can see that the order of the scenes here. You can, of course, do whatever you want to this Excel file, but you can now also import this back into Gorilla. So let's go ahead and click on the Restore button, which is right here. This button is the backup button, which basically is what the Save button does after it saves. But you can manually back up a board now. But let's go ahead and click on the Restore button. And it's going to go and reach into that folder, which is the Backup Stripboards folder. And here is the last board saved. I renamed it to Last Save. If I were to click this file, it will create a brand new board with the data from this Excel file. Now it happens to be that it will be exactly looking like this board because I did not make any changes, but as you can see, that can really save you a lot of time if you mess up or lose your board. And the backup button basically just backs up the board to Excel manually. In order to turn off the automatic saving to Excel after saving the board, if you go to Extras, Scheduling Preferences, and then select the tab Stripboard Functions, here is the option to turn that option off. Auto Backup Stripboard to an Excel file when saving the board. You can see here is the save path in Documents, Gorilla 9, Other Schedule Additions, Backup Stripboards. If I turn this off, it will not constantly make an Excel backup file, but it's a nice option to have. It just takes a second, and it's always good to have a backup. Okay, the next feature is Don't Print Phone on Call Sheet. This gives you the option to not print the phone or the email on the call sheet for each individual crew member scheduled for that day. Now this was a very big requested feature in Koala call sheets. So I'm going to close the board and I'm going to go to Shoot Days and go into the call sheets. And to do that, you just click on any day. And this here is a brand new column. It says do not print phone on call sheet. Now, let's click on this crew member, art director, and then contact. Now, this contact does not have a phone, so let's go ahead really quickly and add one. And then close the window. Now, you don't see it there, but let's look at the DP crew member. Okay, great. This crew member actually does have an email. If you want, you can click on the default button if this crew member had multiple phones or emails. And let's just do a couple more here. Let's do first camera assistant and add a phone. You can do phone or email. Okay, so now we have a few crew members with a phone and or an email. Now, if I don't do anything here, let's go ahead and generate a call sheet. And I'm going to select the first template here and click Continue. You can see that there are a lot of crew members that actually have emails or phones printed right here on the call sheet. So many of you asked for a way to not show this contact information for some of the crew members, and that's exactly what this feature does. So let's say I want to go to the art director and not print the phone for the art director on the call sheet. And the DP, he or she does not want their contact info on the call sheet either. The makeup artist is fine. Let's go ahead and leave that there. The producer, they should have their email there, and the director also. Okay, so let's just say that we don't want those two contact numbers on the call sheet. Now, we do need to generate the call sheet again, so let's close this window and go ahead and print the same call sheet. And now you can see that the art director and the DP don't have their phone or email printed on the call sheet. The next feature is in budgeting. We have new accounting, sort, and filter features. You can now sort, find, and filter the list of transactions in the accounting module for easier organization. So let's go ahead and check that out. I have loaded our sample budget, and I'm going to click on the accounting button. This is our accounting feature, and we have some great videos explaining how to use the accounting feature. You can use it to track expenses against your budget. I have an account here that I've created with all these transactions, and each transaction is attached to an account or category in the budget. So, for example, you can see that this transaction on September 30th is paid to, and this is the account. And if you look over here in the budget, let me move this out of the way. Here's the account number. It is 10, which is set operations. And then there is an amount here of 100. And then on the 2nd of October, this is also for set operations. Down here, these three are for the 07 category, which is production staff. Again, this is a feature we introduced a while ago, which is a great feature that allows you to track expenses against your budget. What we can do now is that we've added these two buttons down here, which gives you a lot more control over how to manage these transactions. This is a sort button. If you click on it, you now have the option to sort this list by all these different criteria. So if I wanted to, for example, sort by transaction date, it will then sort by transaction date. Other options here are sort by pay to, which is this column right here. So this is a really nice way to organize your transactions. You can also sort by amount, descending or ascending, so you can see which transactions are costing more money. We've also added the ability to widen this screen. Before it was locked and you could not widen the screen, so you'd have to scroll down. And we added this really cool find feature. So if you have hundreds and hundreds of transactions here, you can click on the find button and you can enter very specific criteria. Anything from date ranges to pay to, account, even note if you wanted to find a note. And amount. So you could do greater than 1,000 or less than any amount, really. You can enter anything. So, for example, if we wanted to find all transactions for directors, you would type in director in the Pay To field and click on Perform Find. And this will come up with another window with all the transactions with the word director in Pay To. Now notice here that the art director came in because director is part of that name. But let me show you another find feature, which is the another find request. So let's say we want to find producer, but we also want to find grip for some reason. So let's go ahead and type in producer, and instead of clicking find, we're going to click on another find request, and I'm going to type in grip. And now I'm going to click on, now you could do anything you want here, of course. You could do another find request and put in a date range, and let's do a perform find. And now we're going to see that the grip transactions and the producer transactions are all here. Now you can go in here if you want and modify the information, or if you wanted to click on this arrow button, you will see a detail of that transaction. Okay, the next feature. We have now added some Screenplay import enhancements to the final draft importing of a screenplay. Locations, sequence, unit, and script day entries in final draft, the FDX file or the SCX file, will now populate the proper Gorilla fields for those respective fields, location, sequence, unit, and script day. And let me show you that, and this is a very helpful feature that we added. I'm going to take a screenplay here that is a good sample for this feature. Now I'm going to open this up in Final Draft. Now you can't really see the locations and sequences, etc. in this view. However, if you go into the Navigator and click on this button here, which is the Tags panel, you can see all the elements that are tagged. Now, in Final Draft, they added a few categories down here: location, unit, sequence, and script day. And you will see these categories when you create a new Final Draft screenplay. These categories do import into Gorilla. They always have imported into Gorilla. However, all these 4 categories have different places to go in Gorilla. They really should not be in breakdown categories. Now, I will show you that, but as you can see, I color-coded them for clarity. Here is Studio A as a location entry. Here, unit is pink. This entry is a unit. Right here, sequence, this entry for this scene is Chubby and Mom. And script day is green. And if I go to another scene, here is first unit over there. And another scene, here is Studio A. That's location. Here, scene 13, Studio B. Down here is another location. And I know I have another sequence somewhere. Here, oh, here's one that's called exteriors. Okay, so now I'm going to import this screenplay into Gorilla and show you what happens. After the screenplay imports, you're going to see a new dialog that appears, and it tells you that this screenplay has a location category and possibly others, which are all these down here, unit, sequence, and script day, that should also be placed in a different area in Gorilla. Do you want to import locations, etc., into the locations module in Gorilla? You can always do this later. Now, normally you're going to select yes. Now, I'm going to select no, only so I can show you what this does. Let's look at scene 1. I'm going to hide the screenplay display so we can see more of the elements here. And in scene 1, because it is color-coded, it's easy to see. You can see that location is Rodeo Drive, and that was entered in Final Draft. And again, if it was in the SEX file, it would also be there. The first unit is right there in brown. Exteriors is the sequence, and script day right here is 1. Real quick, let's just look at scene 2, and you can see that the 4 categories here also have similar entries. So here's the issue. The problem before this feature, these fields, location, unit, sequence, and script day, are scheduling features in Gorilla. They don't belong here. They don't belong in the breakdown category. This is where sequence goes. Here is unit. Here is location. Right here. And script day is supposed to be right here. Notice these fields are all empty. And this is where this information should go. It's nice that Final Draft added these categories to their screenplay program, but they don't belong there. They are scheduling elements. We need to move them there, and that's what this feature does. Now, if I were to click yes, when presented with that previous dialog message, Gorilla would have moved them there. Now, we're going to do that post-screenplay import, basically manually. Well, sort of manually. So if you select the Screenplay pull-down menu and then import other, we can do one at a time. I'm going to select location first. If I do that, this will import location from the imported screenplay into the locations module. I'm going to click continue. And what this is going to do, look at that. Crappy Hollywood Street is now right there. Now it doesn't remove it from here, which is fine, but it puts it here because that's where it should be, because this is where you will be able to see it on the stripboard. Now if I go to scene 1, notice that location is Rodeo Drive, which is the location entered in Final Draft for this scene. Let's jump down to scene 11, Studio B, Amanda's apartment. Now, if I were to click location, you could see that all the locations that were entered in Final Draft in the breakdown category now appear in this list. And further, if I were to select the locations button, which will take you to the locations module, these have been created for you, and this is where you should put and enter locations in Gorilla. It's always been like that. Now, I'm going to show you the other three, unit, sequence, and script day. They work just a little bit differently. Location, we have a whole module for that. We don't have or need a module for unit, sequence, and script day. These are simply fields on the breakdown sheet. So I'm going to go back up to Screenplay, import other, and let's do sequence. And what this is going to do, this is going to copy sequence from the imported screenplay into the sequence field in breakdown. And as you can see, it copied the sequence to this field up here for each breakdown sheet. And if you click on the sequence field, you can see that all the sequences entered in the screenplay are here. If I were to go to scene 1, exteriors, there it is right there. Now it doesn't delete it here. You don't really need it here, but it does need to be here because that's where the heading part of the scene is. Now I can do the same for unit, and there it is. And I will do the same for the last one, which is script day. Okay, let's go on to the next feature, which is also a screenplay feature in scheduling, and this is the new screenplay flag shot. And this has quite a few repercussions in Gorilla 9. So you can now flag a screenplay line in Edit Screenplay as a shot. I'm going to show you that first, and then the second part is that shots can now be imported from a Final Draft screenplay. Now, to be honest with you, this is actually two features. Let me load the first schedule, which has a lot of screenplay display, and open this up here. Okay, so here is the screenplay display. Now in Gorilla 8, we did introduce the Edit Screenplay feature, which allows you to edit your screenplay in Gorilla. You can add a line, modify a line, change a line from action to dialogue, etc. So let's go ahead and insert a row underneath the scene heading here. Now again, this is not in the screenplay, this is Gorilla. So I'm going to click Insert Row. Now there's a new button here called Shot. And if I select it, you're going to see that the screen changes just a little bit. And you can select a shot type. So let's say, for example, we wanted an aerial shot. We can type in a short description, overview of city, and click on Write. Here we go. Shot, overview of city. It is in brown, but you could change the color if you wanted to. Let's go ahead and add one more between this line and this line here. We will do one more, click on Insert, and click on Shot. And let's say, for example, this is going to be an establishing shot. You don't have to have the word shot here. And we will just call it establishing. Okay, you can say set shot in caps, and this is what I've got by default. And this is where you can change the color if you wanted to change the color to, of course, a different color. And now, as you can see, we have 2 shots in the screenplay display. So this is now part 1 of this feature. And I'm going to show you why that is important in the storyboard module with another feature that I'm going to show you in a little bit. But let me now show you the second part of this feature, which is, in addition, shots can now be imported from a final draft screenplay. Now I'm going to open up this sample. Now this is a screenplay with shots. Now this is just 3 scenes, but some of the lines are tagged as a shot. Here it says aerial shot, a large eagle. But look up here. This line is tagged as a shot. It is not an action line or any other line. Now this is something in Final Draft that can now carry over into Gorilla. So if you tag something as a shot, here is another one, close-up kid, shot, MS, medium shot, fishing pole, and then long shot, kid intent, and then wide shot right there, campfire. Just to show you the difference, if I were to click and highlight this line, this is tagged as action. So you can't see much of a difference on the screenplay between action and shot. But if you were to highlight a line, you can see how it is tagged up here. So let's go ahead and import this screenplay into Gorilla. Okay, so I imported the screenplay with the shots. And if we go to scene 1 or scene 2 or scene 3, we can see that. Let's go into the edit mode. Here we go, close-up of little kid, and here are the other 2 shots. Now, Gorilla doesn't know what shot type it is for each shot because that's a Gorilla entry, not a Final Draft entry. So I'm going to go ahead and specify right here the shot type. This is MS, so I'm going to say medium shot. And I'm going to do this for long shot. And if, for example, you find a shot that is not in the list, you can add it later in the storyboard module, not here. I'm going to do the same very quickly for scene 2 and for scene 3. So now I have properly tagged all my shots, and the very next feature is going to show you how to get this information into the storyboard module. This is called Import Shots from Screenplay to Storyboard. So with the new shot tag available in the screenplay display and the ability to import shots from Final Draft, you can now create a storyboard and import those shots created in the screenplay. So let me show you that. So we do have a storyboard module. Now that's been around for a while, and we've made some enhancements to it in this version. So if I were to click storyboard, so right now it would give you a dialog that says there is no storyboard because we just imported the screenplay. And you have the option of creating a storyboard by scene or by shoot day. Now, we don't have any shoot days yet because we haven't created them yet for this schedule, but this new feature has to do with creating shot setups by scene. As it says here, this imports shots from the screenplay. So I'm going to click on Create Shot Setups by Scene. And it has created 3 shot setups based on the 3 scenes that we have. It randomly assigns a color to those scenes. That is something you can change if you want, but it's just color to help you organize your shot setups. But each one of these is a shot setup. This gives your synopsis here, which you can see goes back to the breakdown sheet, and this references the scene. If you were to click on each shot setup, you can then see that the shot that was imported from the screenplay display, aerial shot, a large eagle. And that was in the screenplay, if you remember. If you were to click on the 3 dots below the image and then click Edit, you can see the sample image for this shot type. And you can import, of course, your own shot image if you want. You can enter a start time and an end time for the shot, the status of the shot, whether it's shot or not shot, and then, of course, you can add elements to the shot, etc. If you go to Shot Setup 2, which is Scene 2, here are the 3 shots that were imported from that scene. We have the close-up, the medium shot, and the long shot, with sample images on the right. And then Shot Setup 3, wide shot. Now it says campfire. Obviously, this is not a campfire. This is just a sample image of a wide shot, but you can change that if you want. And if you were to click on this button here, this expand button, you can see the shot setups and the shot types below each setup. And then down here, there's a print button. You can print a storyboard, a shot list, etc. Now, another added feature is if you select the Shot Setups pull-down menu and select Import Single Breakdown Sheet. Now, I already imported them all, but if I were to go back to the breakdown sheets and add scene 4, scene 5, scene 6, etc., and then go back to the storyboard module, they wouldn't be here because I added those scenes after I imported the shot setups. But this feature here, Import Single Breakdown Sheet, basically allows you to import new scenes as new shot setups. And the new scenes would appear here. And if those scenes have shots in the Screenplay display, those shots would come in attached to those shot setups. So that about wraps it up. One of our best updates yet. Be sure to check it out. Download the demo, which you can use for 15 days. And if you have questions, please reach out to us. Go to our website for details, junglesoftware.com.